Right, so I am delighted to be here today, everyone, and I have been enjoying everyone's talk so far. So I am hoping the mind will also continue to add value to you. As Anna mentioned, I am Maggie Sarfo. I am a business, personal growth, and Akashic Records Consultant, and I work with people to explore new ways of being, new ways of leading, and new ways of attaining our own highest potential. So for today, I am very delighted to be joining you and all our energies together for individual and collective healing, supporting each other through these times. And so in this segment, what I'd like to do is to share with you the idea of DNA healing and how this supports us through these times, whether we're going through perceived or real trauma or emotionally challenging times. I will then move on to talk about the importance of knowing that who we really are is never necessarily the external emotions that are undesired around us. And so the idea of connecting to our true self, our core blueprint, is really, really important. And I will delve a bit more deeper into that in a minute. And finally, I will also lead us through a very quick breathing session. You can call it an inner blueprint DNA meditation, if you will. And the idea behind that is to start you on the journey towards healing your own DNA, and also seeing how that will impact you, your loved ones, the world at large, and also future generations. So let's talk about DNA healing and what it is. So let me give you some examples in terms of when you may recognize that, something that may be happening to you may have an impact on your cells or your DNA. So you may have been to a funeral, for instance, where even though this funeral is for a particular person, suddenly you might feel an overwhelming sense, as if you are actually mourning for several other people that you have lost. Has anyone experienced this before? If you have, this is a typical example. I know someone is typing. This is a typical example of how one emotional scenario has the potential to activate previous scenarios to the fore. And if we are not within ourselves, I'm looking at what Jennifer said just before I came on, in terms of being within yourself and being able to, or even what Carrie said, being able to allow these emotions to pass through you, but also more importantly, knowing that you are not these emotions and they pass through you for a particular reason. And so allowing yourself to go through the emotions allows you to connect to your true self, who you really are, so you can deal with life and also impact yourself and others in a good way. Another scenario, you may be in a situation where a particular emotional state may lead to you being triggered by several similar emotional scenarios. And again, knowing that this is a scenario that is very different from the previous scenarios, are indication that you may have some of the previous cells that came into your system as a result of the previous emotional states are still there because they have not been released. And most of the time, if these scenarios are no longer serving you, then being able to release those and activate a newer DNA cell that allows you to be in your more truer state is what we really need. And so knowing that whatever scenarios we go through are not necessarily us, but we sometimes choose to go through them is important. Just like Jennifer said previously, knowing that we are sometimes connected to the past, and so some of the things that we may experience are not necessarily ours is really important. Knowing that the true self is always devoid of or the undesired scenarios is also important. So you'll be able to distinguish where you are and be able to take steps towards where you'd like to be. And so what I'd like to do is to lead us through the practice that I talked to you about. But just to set the scenario, we're going to take 3 sets of breaths of 3. And the first 3 is to focus your attention into your heart. All this breathing is focused on the heart because that is where our true core blueprint resides. And so you focus your attention to your heart, and we're breathing up to source to connect to who we really are at source level. We're breathing down to connect with, being spiritual beings having an amazing physical experience. And then the next set of breaths, we're going to breathe back to heal the DNA of previous scenarios within our past, with future lineage, and with anything within our past across different timelines, across different dimensions that no longer serve us anymore, but also projecting that into the future, activating our future highest potential selves, but bringing that into the now so we are able to be in our best states and deal with all the scenarios around us. And then the third set of breathing, we're going to do it from the perspective of balancing our masculine and feminine sides, because again, being able to do that allows us to stay in the present and to be who we are, making the right decisions, knowing when we don't necessarily have to take any action, but just relax and let things deal with itself the right way. So I'd like to ask you to bring yourself into a centered state and take some deep breaths with me. So first of all, please focus your attention in the center of your chest. And on your first inhale, imagine a white column of light going from your heart center and going all the way up to source. Take a deep breath into source, and as you exhale, imagine the column of light coming down, all the way down to your feet, and then below your feet into the crystalline grade below the earth. Let's take another 2 breaths here. So breathe in up to source, and exhale down to Mother Earth and into the crystalline grade. And a final one, breathe in up to source and breathe out to Mother Earth and into the crystalline grid. Now your next 3 sets of breathing, breathe in back to the past and exhale to your front and into the future. Now breathe in again, back to the past, and exhale to the future and into the present. One final breath here. Again, breathe in, the column of light going to the back, to the past, and then exhaling into the future and back into the present. And our final 3 sets of breaths. Breathe in, and you feel the column of light, this time going to your left sun side, is your feminine side. Stretching as far as it can go, and exhale, feeling the column of light coming to your masculine side, your right hand side. 2 more breaths here. Breathe in, to your left, back to the center, and breathe out, exhaling to your right. And finally, breathe in, to your left, and exhaling to your right. Well done. I wonder how we're feeling. Feel free to communicate in the chat. And now the final step would be to imagine a white column of light, but this time going round all the 6 points that we've breathed into to activate your highest potential DNA and bring you into your truest state. I have done a longer meditation on this, about 40 minutes, and it's actually on my Wellness Universe profile now. So hopefully you will be able to take some time out and do this meditation more at length, and know that the more you can activate your highest potential DNA, your core blueprint, the better we are to live through these times in a way that supports us, in a way that supports our loved ones, in the way that supports our neighbors, our countries, and healing the collective world, and also into future generations.